I'm Dave Johnson, along with, yes, we welcome Frank Hanrahan this week to the DC Sports Huddle, along with Rob Woodfork and George Wallace. Frank will be available for autographs later. This is just a one-off. No, it'll be first of many appearances.
Yeah, I was about to say, man, this show just got a lot more handsome. We had to.
No, it did. It did.
We had to replace Chi appropriately. So.
Yeah. No, Chi's gone on to Hollywood. He's gone on to other things. But Frank is a man of the people, and he is with us. Hey, happy holiday, everyone. It's Thanksgiving. We got a lot to talk about. We'll start with our favorite topic, the Washington football team. And again, I remember saying this after that Broncos game when Taylor Heinicke had a minus 300 quarterback rating or whatever it was. It was a very low quarterback rating at one of his worst games. My contention was any guy that slept on his sister's couch as he tried to continue to pursue a professional football career was not going to quit, was not going to give up. And he hasn't. And he has performed well. And he's part of the reason we're talking about this Washington football team is maybe a playoff possibility. So I'll just start there that Taylor Heinicke is showing the kind of leadership a quarterback needs to show. George Wallace, jump in.
Oh, the other good news too, guys, is that Logan Thomas is back on the practice field. That's very good news. Curtis Samuel actually out there moving around at the time of this recording. That doesn't mean anything. We've seen him do that before, but that could be a help as far as getting guys back on the offensive side of the ball. Look, I mean, it was a gutsy performance last week against Carolina. Can't take it away from him. You weathered the storm, the Cam Newton emotional storm in that first quarter, which he went out and scored. You knew it was going to be, that place was going to be jacked up, but they weathered it and took care of business when they had to. So now you got a Seattle team. I can't believe I'm actually saying this. You got a Seattle team that's not playing well at all. I've lost 3 straight, both since Russell Wilson's come back. And then looking ahead, it's a week-to-week thing. I get it. But then you got to go to Vegas to play the Raiders. Okay, the Raiders aren't world beaters right now either. So I can't believe that I'm actually saying that this team has a chance to win the next 2 games. And then you get into the last 5 weeks, and it's all division games after that. So anything can happen. So the whole thing was this year getting to that December division part of the schedule and kind of treading water or still being around the conversation. And then anything can happen. And Ron Rivera said this week too, look, if you can get to that point, you control your destiny, so to speak, maybe not to necessarily win the division, but to be in the conversation. Look how bunched up it is right now with that teams that are 5, 6, 7 losses. So anything is possible. And if it is a 1 week at a time thing and you go put 4 quarters together against a team that's struggling on Monday night, then, anything can happen. So it is a positive thing right now for Washington.
And I don't know why we were worried in the first place. Again, gets back to my contention. The NFL is fixed, probably, because it's the greatest miniseries and it's a ratings juggernaut. And it always ends up being this situation where you have this dramatic December leading into the playoffs. So I don't know why we were so angst-ridden. I really don't. Let's go to.
If it's rigged, then I don't know how they're trying to hook Washington up.
No, that's true.
It's Dallas goes 16-0 every year.
But my point is, it's part of the NFL story. It just on any given Sunday that Pete Rozelle once upon a time coined, and it continues to exist, and now it needs to be on any given Monday. We go to Rob Woodfork, who that confident. Are you going to say something, George, before we go to Rob?
I was to say if it's rigged. If it rigged, then Rob's whole thing with Cam would have been fixed a while ago, I think.
That's a great story. That's a great story.
And Rob doesn't let the facts get in the way of a great story. Rob is the posture, the confidence. He had the guts to go out and campaign for Cam Newton. Rod Rivera explained that he wanted to go in a new direction just because it was a new team. And you had a wonderful piece with me on Monday morning talking about, you're eating a little bit of humble pie, if you will. But that happens. And there was no way to predict that Cam Newton wouldn't have been a success in Washington, but he's moved on to Carolina. Your take of all this, and now as this Washington football team moves forward.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, I mean, I wrote a column this week on WTOP.com just giving Taylor Heinicke his flowers. I think it says something that you are able to. It's not funny, George. It's not funny. But I gave Taylor Heinicke his flowers because, look, that performance in Carolina, all jokes aside, I mean, you play your best career game against the number 1 pass defense in the NFL. I mean, that says something to me. And in successive weeks, he played his best football of his career against really tough competition. So, look, I mean, Ron on Sunday was talking about how, what he was asked why they have this switch that flips almost in the second part of the season. And he's just saying, hey, look, I mean, we're a young football team and we're trying to, try to get all these new pieces in toward the beginning of the season. Some of the young guys are sort of feeling their way around. And then once guys get a good sense of what we're doing, then we perform better. Now, I mean, we had this problem with Jay Gruden too when he was here. You can't afford those 1-7, 2-6 starts and expect to do anything meaningful. So that's obviously something that they're going to have to get done. But I mean, look, in terms of the stretch run, I mean, those were arguably two of their hardest games. I think the Seattle game, that actually, believe it or not, is a good matchup for them. Even though we have in our minds that horrible RG3 playoff game from 2012, Washington is 2-1 against Russell Wilson, or at 1-2. Russell Wilson's 2-1 against Washington, but he hasn't played well. An 85 passer rating and has as many touchdown passes, 5, as he has been sacked. So, not as much help. He's still trying to work his way back from injury. And I think you look at the red zone situation, Washington has played a lot better in the red zone the last couple of weeks, and that's been a big difference. They played a lot better on third down the last couple of weeks. Seattle's defense, because I'm going to throw their offense out for a minute, because that is just, they went without Russell Wilson for a while, so those numbers are going to be skewed. But if you look at that defense, it is ranked the second worst in the league in terms of total defense and yardage. But if you look at their scoring, 7th best. So that tells me you can move the ball against them in between the 20s, but you're settling for field goals, or at least their opposition has to this point. So if Washington is finishing drives in this game, I think this is one that they win, maybe even soundly.
I'm going to go with it again. I'll get back to, I made the joke about sleeping on the sister's couch, Taylor Heinicke. But again, I think you have to give him full credit for how he responded. After the bye week.
And here's the thing, and I said it in my column, I'll concede that he definitely had the better game on Sunday, and certainly he has been the catalyst for this 2-game win streak. I give him all credit due for that, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Cam Newton's a bad fit here. Sidebar, Cam had a 120 passer rating in that game on Sunday, so it's not like he was a bum, just Taylor was better.
Yeah. No, and I think, George, you mentioned this, Ron Rivera's explanation of he was just going in a totally new direction. But
yeah,
Frank Hanrahan, who doubles as a NASCAR driver, he's now parked. And by the way, he only adds that gray. It's dyed. It's for sophistication. So that's really not.
You know what, Dave? I've actually had people ask me that. Hey, do you dye your hair gray? And I go, that is just the most ridiculous question. Who would do that?
No, I'll tell you the most ridiculous question. People ask me if I'm wearing contacts because my eyes are hazel. So they ask me, "Are you wearing contacts?" Who can't see enough that they have on contacts and glasses? Who does that?
Well, and I bought this hair in 1983, and it's still.
I was going to say, right?
It's amazing. So,
but who would have thought that Taylor Heinicke would outduel Tom Brady, all right, Cam Newton, and now they got Russell Wilson on Monday night. So it's almost as if this guy, and you love to see it, raises his level of play, even though, look, the talk the last couple of weeks is Taylor Heinicke the future? And the good Taylor Heinicke, yes. The bad is where I think the question marks continue to come up. His decision-making can be woeful at times. But, that 4-3 play against Carolina, they Riverboat Ron gambling at midfield, and his ability to extend plays and just find a way to get it done is really appealing to me. And it really gives this team a tough decision moving forward. But I'm starting to lean to, Taylor Heinicke could be the guy in the near, if not right now, but in the very future in terms of next season. But they've got 7 games to go, and this is really going to be a great test. And all of a sudden, guys, we're not saying that they're a playoff team just quite yet, but things are starting to fall into place, and they get a really struggling Seattle Seahawks team on Monday night. But again, this is a game that they coulda, woulda, shoulda won. We'll see if they can get it done against the Seahawks, who are, like I said, really struggling right now.
And you make a great point about Taylor Heinicke, because we got so excited based on his playoff performance last year. But the reality is he was going to need more time, and with that, it would come growing pains,
yes,
clearly of experience. but it gives you at least what he's done the last couple of weeks, and even that game against the Falcons, or you know what he's capable of, and you know also what he can do to make you pull your hair out. But there's something there, and there's also something, as again, I stand by his mental approach to the game gives me encouragement for the future.
And actually this situation sort of plays out well for him and the franchise, because now he's got an extended opportunity to show what he can do. So he's got a whole season to show improvement and progression and all of that. He wouldn't have gotten it otherwise. If Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't get hurt, he's not on the field at all because he's not the plan. So sometimes you fall into it. And I keep using Kurt Warner as a reference point for him. Nobody planned on Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner was just a guy on a roster who was bagging groceries like earlier. So, I mean, you know, this could be a situation where something good has fallen in your lap. Now, Kurt Warner started off a lot hotter than Taylor Heinicke did, but you know, the way he's played, if he can continue this level of play, and I said this in the column, if he continues this level of play and Washington doesn't shoot itself in the foot with, you know, bad third down and red zone stuff and penalties and all the things that plagued them early in the season, if they continue to play good, sound football around him, I mean, they can beat anybody who's on their remaining schedule.
Well, somebody said bumpy roads lead to beautiful places or something like that. So maybe a bumpy road for Taylor Heinicke. And by the way, it was Trent Green was supposed to be the man.
That's right.
Yeah.
St. Louis former Washington quarterback and then got hurt. George, I know you're chopping at the bit.
Yeah, and I was going to say the other thing is too, you know, he makes these. Frank's talking about the bad Taylor, the interceptions in the end zone, which we saw earlier in the year. But I think that the guys love playing with him on the field. Like he's out there giving all he can. The scrambles the other day, the sidearm touchdown pass, the fourth down play that Frank was alluding to.
Yeah.
Like he's yes, he's making the mistakes, but he's making them full speed ahead. So I think it's one of those things where you can see guys like playing for a guy like that. I mean, he's leaving it all on the field and he gets frustrated as hell when he's not making the plays, but he's not making many mental mistakes, I don't think. I think guys love to see that as a teammate. I mean, I know I would be out there. I'd love to play for a guy like that that's giving it all. He's got every single play, running, he's sliding and jumping up and then pointing at defenders and things like that. So that's a guy that I think that you see teammates wanting to play for and raise their game up a level. I mean, if this guy's out there giving it all, he's got every single play, why can't I do it? So I think that is another thing that you see from this team.
He's got a little Brett Favre in him, man, and I hate to say it because that's a high bar. And I've sidebar kind of said that he's one of the most overrated quarterbacks in NFL history, but that's a different topic for another day. But he does have some. He does. Hey, now he does have some Brett Favre in him. He's got that, you know, that gambler mentality. He's able to sort of make a play where there isn't a play, and so I mean, give him credit. Give him credit. He's wearing that number 4 well as of the last couple of weeks.
Well, see, you learn from watching on TV. He grew up watching Packers games, and look what's happened. And by the way, George, you hit on Logan Thomas coming back. That could be huge down the stretch to have another target like that. So. That could be huge. Frank, you're looking ponderous. I hope that I use that word correctly.
I'm just curious as to, you know, again, we go into this mode of why wasn't there this sense of urgency earlier in the year when they looked so bad? And it's amazing how you watch these teams around the league and you say, my gosh, look at the Giants last night, to the point of those mental mistakes when you got a quarterback making just god-awful decisions and how that can snowball. And even though the Washington football team loses Chase Young, you know, arguably could be one of their better defensive players, their defense was much better last week. So it is pretty incredible how, you know, just one little change of momentum and fortune can really change the whole outlook for the season. Because just 2 weeks ago, we were laughing at them, right? Laughing, literally going, what are they doing? And now it seems like they know exactly what they're doing. So I'm very curious to see how things shake out Monday against Seattle.
And usually the truth lies somewhere in between,
Right.
because I don't
Yeah.
think they were as bad as they showed in the early part of the season, but also I don't think they're the world beaters that we've seen the last 2 weeks that dominated the world champions and took control basically. Well, I won't say start to finish, but they took control at least through the second half of that Carolina game. So I don't know that they're going to do that every week, but I think there's somewhere in between. And here's the thing, and I was telling our coworker Sean Anderson the other day, he was like, "Oh man, like, are they for real?" And I said, "Well, I mean, I predicted that they're 8-9 this year, so they're right on
I did too.
to be
Yeah.
8-9." So, as great as the last 2 weeks were, we need to still, kind of see how this story plays out.
Well, and not to play Dr. Phil on this and get back to the mental approach, but I think Ron Rivera kind of hinted at it after one of the losses that this is what happens with a young team that starts to believe too much of it itself. And I think we saw that the first few weeks where, as they would talk about, players doing things they weren't supposed to be doing, they were trying to do too much or whatever the explanation was.
Mhm.
But he seemed to hint that it wasn't necessarily a great thing for a young team to have a defense that was raved about and coming off a playoff performance against the Buccaneers. And maybe they did pay for that the first few weeks. All right. It is the Thanksgiving holiday. So what are we thankful for in the sports world? Thankful for so much. Blessed that we can do this every week and talk on the DC Sports Huddle. But beyond that, we'll start with you, Rob. What are you thankful for?
I am thankful that Matthew Judon is not going to be at my Thanksgiving dinner, because the macaroni and cheese slander that he did in his media monologue the other day, wholly unacceptable. Macaroni and cheese is delicious. It is versatile. It can be for Thanksgiving. It could be for that. It could be for just, a random Wednesday while you're watching the huddle over dinner, whatever. It is wonderful. It is a beautiful gift from the culinary gods. And how dare he shake his fist and speak blasphemy against macaroni and cheese. So I'm glad he's going to be somewhere else.
Well, finally, over a year into the DC Sports Huddle, and we have an official food of the DC Sports Huddle, the macaroni and cheese. So we'll go with that.
Mhm.
Yes.
George, it's going to be hard to top mac and cheese. George, you're thankful?
Look, first of all, my kids are thankful for mac and cheese. So that
right.
is one thing.
Okay.
Before I go, my parting words, I'm thankful, honestly, guys, this year that we are back to watching sporting events live in person, around athletes, around coaches, and with fans in the stands. It's as simple as that. You realize it last year when it was gone. There's such a big difference this year. And that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Okay. Happy Thanksgiving. Frank, thankful.
See, now Georgie totally stole my thunder. But I will say, and probably Dave, you probably know this better than the rest of us, just the amount of, I'm thankful for the amount of effort and work it's taking to get these games on, right? I'm sure there's so much behind the scenes that we don't realize, the testing, the folks that are working at the arenas just to make this happen. So that's what I'm thankful for. Take it to a different level, just the amount of energy and effort that people that we don't necessarily know are putting that effort forth to make this all happen and worthwhile. So that's what I'm thankful for. And
No,
this
and
little one too.
Yes, no, and you should be.
She stole the show, man. She stole the show.
I know she got herself a smoothie from McDonald's, so she's happy.
There we go. Well, it's those things in life, and that's well said. I mean, I think about we have fans back close to the players, for example, Wizards games, but as the ticket people deal with these fans, they have to make sure all those fans are tested. And so, in other words, to Frank's point, it's an extra layer to make sure that we can safely enjoy these games. And I'll leave it for just thankful for the Washington Spirit's perseverance and resilience. I don't know all the facts and their season, but just from what was reported and what we understood, it could have been a season that just unraveled more than it did at times, and to actually persevere and win a championship. And by the way, with Trinity Rodman showing that she's got her dad's DNA in her, because for all that people talked about the multicolored hair of Dennis Rodman, he was a competitor in a Chicago Bulls uniform as he studied before games, because he was a great rebounder and he was not the biggest guy on the floor. Trinity Rodman was a tremendous story as well. But I'm just thankful for the Washington Spirit's courage and resilience. I'll take a page from that, because we all deal with various challenges.
Sure.
For George Wallace, Frank Hanrahan, our star behind Frank Hanrahan, and Rob Woodfork, happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for spending time on the DC Sports Huddle.
Happy Thanksgiving. Break.